No. Like, but here's the thing. Like,
can I put that on the website?
You can put whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, I also think this idea that like New Yorkers are going to flee because of a 2% increase. It's like I've been everywhere else. You're not going anywhere. Bill Ackman's not going nowhere. He's going to be in the Hamptons all fucking
There's
summer.
only one place to write those tweets.
That's it.
New York City.
Exactly.
Every character you want.
AC goes out in July in Miami. You sweating writing tweets? There's no way.
He's spending more money against me than I would even tax him. Every day it's like $1 million. It's like $1 million. I'm like, Habibi, I don't even want that. You're going above and beyond.
Okay, but so I don't think anybody's moving, and I honestly feel that way. And like I'm in the tax bracket where you're going to tax more. Like, dude, if you're going to deliver all this shit for 2%, give it. I'm 100% supportive if it makes life easier for New Yorkers. This is my one identity in my entire life is a New Yorker. It's the thing I care the most about. But what I will say is that I think that there are going to be people in government that are going to try to restrict you from doing that. And I know that you're aware of that. So I'm like, how? And there are people that might disagree on economic policy. We can have like a philosophical discussion about like what economic policy works. But I don't even know I think that's like a waste of time. What the fuck do you do when special interest groups are going to be lobbying like crazy? They're going to say, I want to build 200,000 units. And then the second you try, they're going to be like, well, not in my neighborhood, I don't.
Yeah. I mean, you have
How
to.
do you do that?
You have to be ready to take on these fights. You cannot be naive
taking
to
on
the
it right
fact.
now. Special interest groups are.
But I mean, it's. I appreciate the point because there is a reason why we haven't had progress, right? If you look, for example, at the Department of Education, this is the agency we spend the most amount of money on in any agency in New York City.
Yep.
Of the $40 billion we spend about $10 billion on contracts and consultants.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of people who are looking forward to the renewal of their contract.
No, it's to educate you nerds at Bronx Science. Some of us dumb kids that went to regular public school, we don't need all that money.
Look,
Where'd you go to high school?
Baruch College Campus High School.
What was your mascot?
The Blue Devils.
All right.
Yeah. Which
It's
we
actually
just chose.
a white devil. Isn't that funny? Who knew? Habibi, let's talk about that.
Segue.
Segue. Get us back to Hochul.
Pivot.
Get us back to Hochul.
But here's my point. There are people making money off the status quo. And so there will be a lot of interest in retaining that status quo.
Yeah.
Right now, the city of New York will pay McKinsey a few $1 million to design a trash can. McKinsey's not going to be happy when I say we don't need you to design that anymore.
Right,
we can actually design that ourselves. The Second Avenue subway, which is the most recent extension of New York City subway lines.
Shut that shit down, bro.
Okay, that's not where I'm going.
Shut that shit
I don't know. Where
Ain't
are you
nobody
taking this?
need a subway on 2nd Avenue.
It's actually a beautiful
Why are you so
thing.
against? Why are you and Curtis Sliwa so against the Second Avenue subway?
Because we're from Manhattan.
You don't want to get to 125th Street?
Never go to Upper East Side.
I grew up. I went to middle school there. I went to elementary school
You
there.
don't go there now.
I know, but so I don't need it. No, the last place you need a subway is on the Upper East Side. They're going to be okay. They're not leaving. Bring a subway down to Tribeca or something like that.
It's wherever you are.
Connect the Q train to something.
That's what I'm trying to do.
What is this Second Avenue subway?
You don't take the subway.
So what? It's not about that. You know what I mean? I'm here giving my 2%, but not to the Second Avenue subway. I'm not going to spend another 2% on Second Avenue
Percent per
subway.
avenue,
Tell
dude.
them walk 2 more blocks and then take the 6.
Look, I think we got to go from 96th Street to 120th.
Did you just hear what he says? He goes,
No, it is long. That's a good point.
That's right. That's 8 blocks mathematically.
What I'm saying is, why are you trying to build more white people subways, man?
Look at this. Look at this. So you were fine with the Second Avenue subway,
only white
72nd,
people over there.
86, 96, but you don't want to go to 125th?
I never wanted it at any of those stops.
Here's my point.
I've always been against the Second Avenue subway. They want to live over there and make them walk. I dated a girl over there. That shit was horrible. I had to walk and they gotta walk. I was walking at York Avenue in shorts.
I feel like I'm talking to Eric Adams.
Fucking December. Bring in 11. Put in 11 on the Second Avenue subway. Use the poles for something.
Here's his point.
Here's my point, though, is that people in Harlem were promised a subway to 125th Street on the 2nd Avenue decades ago.
Yeah.
And
Crazy.
it's taken us so long to even get to this.
Why didn't we start with them?
We had to connect it.
What is it? Well, you could connect it the other way, too. We could have started it up there.
But where are they going to take it from 125th to 116? That's as long as a 2-avenue 116.
Yeah, I'm actually here to announce that the head of design at the MTA is about to be
Thank you. I would have done that too. Now you're making some good decisions.
Yeah.
All right. I'm taking back my 2% if I'm gonna work for it though. No. I hear what you're saying. You got to connect it to 51st Street.
But I think the larger point here is though that like when they did the first phase of construction for the Second Avenue subway, the MTA spent more money on consultants than construction.
Yeah.
So this is part of the issue is that you're right that we're going to have to transform the inner workings of government.
Yeah.
And that means ending a patronage politics. There are a lot of people who have jobs more to do with who they know than what they do.
Yeah. No,
and that's not specific to Eric Adams.
And
It sounds like you want to create a Department of Government Efficiency. Kind of sounds like. Because when I said I was in favor of it, this liberal cuck, when it was a Republican idea, hated it. And now I'm in favor. Now look at him nodding.
Donnie, we are not going to judge people who like to watch others have sex with their wives. That is their... That's it.
I'm bringing it back to efficiency.
Okay, sorry.
I'm bringing it back to waste.
Some people would say that's efficient and waste.
You can wait for Andrew Cuomo to have these other conversations. Right? Sorry.
You know he's going to love it.
Okay, go. But here's my point: is that it is sad that we've let someone like Elon Musk take the words efficiency, fraud, as if they are right-wing concerns.
I agree.
These are actually the concerns that should be at the heart of a progressive politics.
Yes.
Because I want to increase taxes on the top 1% by 2%. And I also want those same New Yorkers to be able to look at that increased revenue and say every single one of these dollars is being spent efficiently.
Yeah.
It can't be in and of itself the reason why you do it. It has to be what you deliver with that money.
I think like Doge was universally supported before it became what it was. But the idea...
it was never actually intended to fulfill the intentions.
Got it.
But the intentions...
The intentions are right.
I think most people...
Let's eliminate it.
Okay, I love that.
So if rent is the most important issue, which I think we all agree, it's like fucking absurd. The rent freeze was like incredibly effective communication, right? This idea, because everybody else is talking about, we're going to build all these units. When you're drowning, you're not worried about like someone building you a boat. You need a life vest. I get that 100%. I think that makes sense. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you can do that to like about 50% of the units in New York.
Yeah.
Because those are like,
apartments pretty much.
they're like the rent stabilized or rent controlled units.
About 2.5 million New Yorkers live in these kinds of apartments.
Got it.
Yeah.
How do you offer relief to the other 50%? And let me just clarify to people listening, like those other 50% aren't necessarily people who are wealthy.
They're just living in market rate units.
And I think that work here and they just didn't have the ability to get one of these, rent controlled units.
And so I'd first say there's rent control, which is a very small minority.
Yeah.
The vast majority of what we're talking about is rent stabilization. Rent stabilization means there's a limit on how much your rent can increase every year. It's not what your rent is, it's what the increase will be. And it's all determined by a board called the Rent Guidelines Board, composed of 9 people that the mayor appoints.
You can appoint them.
Yes.
But I think the appointing process might even take a little bit, right? It's not like day one you do it.
It's each of these terms are on kind of a rotating basis.
Got it.
And there are a number of these terms that are open right now.
Got it. So you can point some, and there might be some people that are empathetic to your philosophies already. So.
Because they actually did a study. That same board, under Eric Adams, did a study. It found that landlord profits had increased 12% of those units in the same year that the median household income of tenants of those units was $60,000. And with that information, they decided, let's hike the rent again. So it actually doesn't have to do with the data.
Got it.
But the point that you're making is right, which is that we have to have a housing policy for all 8.5 million people. That's why you couple a rent freeze with construction of 200,000 truly affordable homes. The reason I say truly is because, like, I represent Steinway in Astoria, right? I'll call a constituent, I'll say, there's a new affordable housing development coming up. Do you want to apply? They'll say, how much do I have to make? I say $140,000. They hang up the phone.
Yeah, it's affordable housing.
Because how are they going to afford that, right?
Yeah.
And so my point is, thinking about affordability more with the median household income in New York City, which is $70,000 for a family of 4.
I love it.
So you have to increase that, and you have to make it easier for the private sector to also build.
I agree with you 100%. Like, I think Ezra Klein put out a great book that I think that he's been like unfairly maligned by a lot of people on the left, but like where he's just going, hey, I appreciate democratic policies. I want to implement them. I think they're better for people, but there are certain things that we need to remove so that we can be competitive in an open market.
And I think that there's a truth to that where, look, I'm somebody who believes in the public sector.
Yeah.
I believe in regulation.
Yeah.
I also believe that if I can't give you the reason for the regulation,
Yeah.
then it has no reason to exist.
Yeah.
I cannot justify a restaurant giving the city every year $25 for the right to sell a frozen dessert. That doesn't make sense. Right? That is something that should be eliminated.
Yeah, okay.
I cannot justify someone who wants to open a barbershop filling out 24 forms, going to 7 agencies, and then attending 12 in-person events.
Yeah.
That does not make sense to me.
Right.
So I think that there is a truth to some of the regulations we've created have made it far more difficult to build housing.
Yeah.
And even the justifications we used back then are not the ones that have been borne out today. So we need to change those.
So how do we, first of all, I completely agree. And as like someone who has someone renovating above me, please believe I like the fact that there is regulation. Do you know what I mean? Like I have a kid who's 21 months old.
Yeah.
It's like they want to sleep, and if somebody's just going to be
21.
banging 21. This guy's a
21
rapper.
months old.
Yes. So and she'll never listen to 21 Savage. And,
Apologies.
no. And so I guess my question is like, how do we get those 200,000 units out? Because the real only thing that's going to solve this crisis, and it's a legitimate crisis, like, is more units. You can freeze
more
rent, you
units.
can do all these things.
You have to do it with more.
And some people, and I'm sure you would probably acknowledge this, said like even freezing rent within the controllable units that you have could cause like a surplus pressure in the non-controlled units, and those might go up. So while we protect those 50%, the other people who are making the same amount of money as them, because of those market pressures, could have increased rent. Right?
Corporations are going to make their money.
And that's why you have to take this as an opportunity to also tackle the costs that landlords are facing. Because when I speak to landlords,
Talk to me about that. That's
I
interesting.
hear that the insurance of affordable housing units has doubled in the last few years. Right. And that cost is one that is driving so much of the pressure.
That's interesting.
And there's a number of those landlords that came together to create a different risk pool through something called Milford Street Captive. And they've managed to depress that cost. What if the city invested in that kind of a mechanism to help those landlords address that? The other thing here is that
Are they gouging the affordable housing units because they know that they're government backed?
no, they're gouging them because there's money to be made.
But
Right?
in the same way that like universities can charge whatever they want for an education because they know the government will back the loans. Like, is that
To me, what this gouging more looks like is there are many providers who are now paying the cost of a number of bad landlords who have made insurance such a high part of doing business.
Got it.
Right. And so you have better providers who are pooling their risk together.
Got it.
And so my point here is if you invested a significant amount of capital, you could assist that kind of an intervention.
Got it.
The second thing is you have a property tax system that's broken in New York City, one that effectively penalizes rental apartments and the owners of those rental apartments. And if you had a system that incentivized the construction of rental apartments, you could have a very different landscape of housing. So to me, it's freeze the rent and take on the cost of insurance and fix a broken property tax system and streamline development and have the city produce 200,000 homes. And often when I've talked about 200,000 homes, that's just what I think the city should do. I think the private sector should be doing an immense amount of additional
But
construction.
they're going to need incentive structures as well, right? Like there was that program, forgetting what it was. Was it? And
421A, then 485A?
I think that you're talking about the HTPSA that just sunset recently.
You're speaking about the
That's the extension of
HSTP.
421A.
No, these are separate things.
Oh, okay.
You're talking about 2019 rent laws.
Yes,
Yes.
but that's not what I was referencing.
Then there's the tax incentive.
There's
421A,
yes.
now 485X or 45W. Yeah.
I'm talking about the one that basically allowed developers over a 35-year period. So essentially the idea is there was like a tax abatement for 35 years. For the first 25 years, they didn't pay. The last 10, they started increasing 10% every year. And at the end of the 35, all the units were now free market. But I think at a certain point in time, 30% of them were like rent controlled.
There's stabilization and there's a set aside for affordability.
And again, I don't know like what metrics work, and I'm not like an economist and I'm not a developer. But to me, just from talking to some people in development, they said that like, since this, I think, what was it, the HTPSA, since that, or if it was this program, was this Affordable New York?
HSTP is the Housing Stabilization Tenant Protection Act.
That was the de
HSTP.
Blasio thing. That's not this thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're basic. Well, I'll kind of step back for a second.
Please, yeah.
You'll hear from developers that the HSTPA passed in 2019 made it more difficult for them to maintain a lot of housing units because it put limitations on what they could do with regards to profit and how they could push many tenants out of those same tenant buildings. At the same time, There's the incentive through 421A that has since been renewed to become something called 485, which is a tax incentive for the construction of new housing.
Is that the New York Yes or whatever, or is that affordable New York?
There's City of Yes.
City of Yes.
These are three different things.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can
But I think here's the thing: is that most New Yorkers don't have time to know every single set of numbers and letters, right?
it's
but that's representative of more New Yorkers than those who know, and that's our job to break this down, right? What City of Yes does is it makes it easier to construct more housing across New York City. It changes zoning regulations. It's estimated to allow for the additional construction of a little less than 90,000 new units.
Yep.
We have to build on top of that. It has to be even more than that.
Yep.
My point here is that when I speak to developers, we'll have disagreements about labor. We'll have disagreements about maybe materials and the cost of it. One place we have a real agreement about is the cost of waiting. Many of these developers will tell me one of the most expensive things they have to deal with is the wait. They'll put in an application, they'll put forward a bid, and then they'll have to wait and wait and wait. And we know time is money. Because you're not just waiting, you're also paying other people who are waiting with you. And there's an environmental law at the state level called SECRA. SECRA requires you, when you're putting forward an application, to estimate the traffic flows of 10 to 15 years from now. So when they did the Williamsburg rezoning, they were asking people to estimate these traffic flows before Lyft and Uber existed in New York City. And so now, obviously, their presence in New York City makes a mockery of any estimate that was made prior to that. And yet that estimate is still one you could be held liable for in court, saying you said it would be this and now it's this. And so to me, these are examples of what you were bringing up earlier of how do we bring these regulations more in line with reality, and how do we ensure that we are able to build the immense amount of housing we need so that we can actually have New Yorkers stay here. That's the goal, because we're building 4 homes per 1,000 people. Jersey City's at 7. Tokyo is at nearly 10.
What is Houston at?
Tell me.
They're doing an unbelievable amount, because there's just no regulation. Now, there's different circumstances. You're not building on top of each other, and there's a lot more land. I understand it. And I don't like those comparisons generally, because New York is such a specific city. We're living on top of each other and next to each other, and there's different considerations that we have to make.